All right, let's try this a second time because my first video, I had my microphone off, and so it was like a 8 minute review with no audio because I'm an idiot. So, uh, I like to dabble in a lot of stuff outside of watching toku shows. I like what I like to call toku adjacent or toku inspired media. So that could be a comic, manga, video games, anything like that that's not an actual TV show or a movie, because that's tokusatsu, it's special effects. A book cannot be toku. It can be toku inspired. And I like manga and graphic novels. Like, I still have to sit down and do my 01 comic book review. But for today, this video, I'm actually reviewing indie manga slash graphic novel published by Saturday AM called Henshin for a Bon Idol. Look at that cover. That's nice. I like that. And it's uh kind of like a mashup because we got kaijins, kaijus. I could see some Super Sentai elements in the suit design. I get the Kamen Rider vibes from the Henshin device and everything else. And I really wanted to check this out. I found it because I saw a tweet. Someone tweeted about it and like, hey, look at this thing. And before this, I had no prior knowledge of like Saturday AM. I have no prior knowledge of Bon Idol or any stuff. And since I read this, I have started to look into more of Saturday AM stuff because I'm like, okay, um, this was an interesting read. It's got 10 chapters. It's about 212 to 214 pages. Uh, Bod Idol did the artwork, the story, wrote everything. So anytime someone does all of that, that's you get kudos, you get my credit. That's a lot of work. That's something I've been looking into lately. I have actually, now that I finished my desk setup with my new camera, by the way, I have my drawing tablet over here, my big one, because I want to start finally getting some design stuff and work on some things as well. But that's not here nor there. Let's talk about volume one of Henshin. So the premise of the whole entire thing, and I'm going to be giving light spoilers, but I'm not going to be talking about everything that happens in the book. Uh, so 9 years ago, there was like this cataclysmic event, so to speak, right? Basically, the city exploded to an extent, and the government had their hands tied with all this bureaucratic red tape. They couldn't do anything about it. So this tech, like multi-billionaire Alton Graves steps in with his company and tries and rebuilds the city. Everything's running on tech. I was getting like almost like a hybrid of like RoboCop vibes and like iRobot, but not from like the robot standpoint, but just from the standpoint of like a tech company coming in, basically policing and rebuilding a city and having that shady side to it, which is what our main character, Alex, who is a journalism student, is all about wanting to expose Graves. That it's, he's not this great guy who has the city in his mind in best interest. So I like that. I like right off the bat, we have a journalist student who's going to become a hero. Again, that dynamic with Alex and his friend Rosalina, who I'm going to call Rose throughout the rest of this review. They're both, journalist students. And I like the dynamic of their friendship because, Alex, he's all about, let me uncover this truth of this, this conspiracy. Whereas Rose is like me. Cryptids are the thing. Like, she's gung ho on this masked hero that's been fighting monsters in the city at at night, and there's no proof at all of this. And we find out, and this is one of the few times I'll give spoilers, when Alex is heading home, there's at the subway or the train, and one of these kaijins attacks, and the masked hero shows up, and in the fighting and this and that, the monster gets the upper hand, and there's a transfer of some of the power over to Alex, so he becomes this masked hero, and now we have that cool dynamic of you don't believe your friend until you see it, right? So now he's like Rose, masked hero. It's a thing. Um, the cool side of the balancing of the being a student, also being in your internship, being a hero, and on top of this, you're now on your internship or externship working for kind of like a lower rung magazine that's not like a staple anymore, like one of the major ones, but also working with you is a fellow student who just so happens to be your ex. And I should point this out because it is something that I've seen some people saying stuff like this is unnecessary and this and that. I'm disclaimer. I don't care if I don't see any sort of like self representation in media. I'm in that book of like, give me good story, give me good characters. That's all I care about. So I should note that this is a queer uh, esque book. I'm not going to say queer like fully. Alex is gay, and I'm like, okay. And so him working at this newspaper with his ex, who he still kind of likes. I'm like, all right, that's cool. Like, I it did not change my effect. It did not affect or change my opinion or outlook on this book. This book is very well written. The artwork is great. I enjoy it. This did not, as I guess a heterosexual male who's married and everything else, like, yes, I'm not gonna relate to some of the things, but I've had a job where I worked with an ex, and it was weird, very weird. That's for another time. That story's not for this, but I have to point out that that's in there. It the fact that there are people who I've read some reviews, like where people are like, this is great, this is included, like, and I'm like, that is awesome. See, there's there's elements of every story that is a possibility to lure someone in and broaden their horizons and get them into more of this form of media. If someone's like, I identify with Alex, and they buy this book and they read it and they love it, and next thing you know they're checking out other stuff, job done. Or someone like me who reads this, sees that, thinks that's cool, and then like and adds more depth to the character, but then sees the artwork and I'm like, it's a good story, great art, I'm gonna keep reading it. There's two sides to every coin. And like every element of a story can be a gateway to get someone into the media, into that genre. So if this book got someone into tokusatsu or anything like that, awesome. I think Bon Idol did a great job with the balancing the characters, their personalities, some of their personal struggles and issues, as well as the fact that we've got monsters attacking and a shady billionaire tech guy who's basically running a city. Now, speaking of that, I really, really enjoyed how much mystery like this has throughout it. Like, we don't know what happened, what caused 9 years ago. We know through a lot of dialogue and this and that Alton Graves is a bad guy. He's not a good guy. We see, you know, what are these masked heroes? Where does this power come from? Also, by the way, the Henshin device is a spark plug because everything, electricity and power. Like, I thought that was genius. Okay. That is a cool idea for a gimmick and a Henshin device. Oh, so good. So good. I will say the artwork, keeping a lot of black like for most of the designs and the monsters, like really adds to it, especially when you have like scenes where like the buildings will be gray and white. You have the moon, you have a mysterious figure who's also a masked hero, but a villain, in all black with the white detail lines. I love that choice. That choice is so smart. And I can't talk enough about the story because it's tough for anything that's Toku inspired. Because if you watch like Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Garo, Ultraman, Godzilla, they're obviously seeing something on screen and playing it out and how it plays out and pacing is a lot different than a manga or a light novel. And you have to have a certain balance and stylization to like keep someone hooked. Like, I read this whole entire thing in one sitting. I didn't take like breaks or I just sat down and I was like, I'm reading this, and then I just cleared it. Especially 'cause it's like 214 pages, which is a lot to just sit down and read, But I will say the pacing of it, and 1 second you'll get, oh, here's the Alex at his internship, and the learning about the office dynamic and the characters there. Next thing you know, hey, fighting a monster. Oh, next thing talking to Rose about, oh, this is what's going on. We should look into this more. And so the there's so many moving parts and story elements and characters, and there's not too many. There's not a lot where like anything gets pushed to the side, and even the smaller moments of just interpersonal, like personal dialogue between two characters, everything felt in place. I'm really excited to see book two. I don't know how like I said, I'm not familiar with Saturday AM. I'm not familiar with how their publishing works and their time releases. I am very curious to see when volume two comes out because I want to know where the story continues. There's a nice cliffhanger at the end of it that really hooked you in, and even reading this from like a chapter standpoint, because there's 10 chapters in the volume one, like I could see reading this from a chapter to chapter standpoint very appealing and easy to digest because of how it's paced, where it's broken up in the story. Like I said, the main cliffhanger at the end was 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 great. I loved that a lot. But if you haven't already, go check out volume one of Henshin. I strongly recommend it. I bought mine on Amazon. It was $13.99. I think this is really cool, especially when they go into the fact that like a lot of the stuff, because there's a cleanup crew and no one else knows what's really going on with this hero fighting these kaijus, it kind of turns into that like urban legend type thing, and they even talk about it in the description of it, and I was like, I like that. That is a nice like touch, because everything, it kind of gets this whole everything's happening in the shadows type of deal, which I'm all for. I like that. I don't like when stuff is just in your face, boom, 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 quick, not a easy, like I don't want to say easy read, but more like holding your hand and just giving you all the information all at once. This is definitely stretching out the story and the air of mystery, because you have so many different moving parts. Like I said, Alton Graves, what's going on with him, what happened 9 years ago with the explosion, where are these kaijus technically coming from, and what are they, and then who's this mysterious evil dude who basically keeps telling Alex that he doesn't even understand what's really going on. He's just fighting these monsters because this other masked hero who gave him some power said to. And I'm just like, these are all great elements and good story pieces. So yeah, definitely check out volume one of Henshin. If I remember, I'll put a link in Amazon to pick it up. If not, just type in Saturday AM Henshin or Bon Idol into Amazon. It'll pop up. I know Saturday AM also has an app to read stuff digitally, which I'm going to be looking into. But yeah, that's it for the video. Let me know if you checked it out, what you thought. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.